Welcome back to Fluent and Fearless, the podcast for anyone who wants to communicate with confidence, clarity, and authenticity. I'm Katherine Arthur, a pronouns speech and accent specialist. I'm an American English speech and pronunciation instructor, a speech language pathologist, and a radio broadcaster. And now that's a lot to pack into one person, but here I am. Now today, we're talking about something that almost nobody discusses enough in American English pronunciation. It's not vowels, not the R sound, not TH, and it's not even accent modification. We're talking about word stress. Now, if you've ever thought to yourself that people understand you, but you still don't quite sound natural, or that your pronunciation is pretty good, but conversations still feel harder than they should, well, word or syllable stress might just be the missing piece of the puzzle. In fact, I would argue that word stress is one of the most overlooked and most powerful tools for sounding natural in American English. The surprising thing is that many English learners spend years perfecting individual sounds while completely ignoring stress patterns. Well, today we're going to change that. Today we'll talk about what word stress is, why Americans rely on it so heavily, common mistakes that are made, and practical ways that you can improve starting today. So let's dive in on Fluent and Fearless. I'm Katherine Arthur. So what is word stress? Well, first, a quick definition. Word stress is the syllable that gets extra emphasis. Think of it as a spotlight on a stage. One syllable gets the spotlight. The others stay in the background. So let's try it together. Repeat after me. Table, doctor, window, beautiful. Did you notice something? One syllable felt stronger, longer, more important. That's word stress. Word stress is the syllable in a word that receives extra emphasis. So when Americans stress a syllable, they usually make it longer, slightly louder, higher in pitch, and more clear. So let's try some more. For example, photograph. The first syllable gets the spotlight. Photograph. Not photograph, not photograph, but photograph. Stress matters because Americans expect to hear words in certain rhythm patterns. And when the stress is misplaced, listeners often need an extra moment to process what you just said. So why is word stress more important than perfect sounds? Well, here's something I tell my clients all the time. You can pronounce every sound correctly and still sound unnatural. But you can make a few sound errors and still sound very natural if your stress is correct. Think about how Americans listen. We don't process every single sound equally. We listen for patterns. We listen for rhythm. We listen for stress. Syllable stress acts like a roadmap. It tells listeners where important information is located. Without that roadmap, listeners are going to work harder. So imagine hearing photograph, photograph, photograph. Only one sounds immediately familiar. The stress pattern helps your listener recognize the word almost immediately. So because we stress certain syllables and words in American English, our speech flows. It has a rhythm. Not every language does that. Some languages give all syllables equal stress. So if you speak English as a second language, syllable stress could be something new for you to learn. So remember, when Americans listen to speech, we're not analyzing every single sound. We're listening for patterns. We're listening for rhythm. We're listening for stress. The stress pattern acts like a shortcut for the listener. It's one of the ways our brains identify words quickly. Now, this is where things can get interesting. Sometimes changing stress doesn't just make a word sound unnatural, it creates a completely different word. Listen to these pairs of words. Record versus record. Spelled exactly the same, but one is a noun and one is a verb. I have a record. That's a noun. I want to record a video. That's the verb. Here's another pair. Present and present. The first one's a noun and the second one's a verb, but they're spelled exactly the same. She gave me a present. That's the noun. I will present the proposal. That's the verb. Here's another pair. Contract. That's a noun. Contract. That's the verb, but they're spelled exactly the same. Another pair of words that are spelled exactly the same. Produce and produce. The first one's a noun, the second one a verb. And these word pairs are everywhere in English. They're spelled exactly the same, but one is a noun and one is a verb. For many listeners, the stress pattern is actually one of the first clues that tells them which word you're using. The stress goes on the first syllable in the noun and on the second syllable if it's a verb. So let's play a game. We'll call it the stress game. I'm going to give you a word, and you guess which syllable is stressed. Then I'll tell you the answer. Are you ready? Communication. Take a guess. Communication. The answer, communication. How about education? Education. The answer, education. Try this one. Motivation. 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 Did you notice something? Many longer English words place the stress near the end rather than the beginning of the word. That's one reason why these words can be tricky. There are some common words that English learners frequently stress incorrectly. So now let's do a little experiment. Imagine someone says, I bought a new computer. Sounds normal. Now imagine, I bought a new computer. You still understand it, but something seems off. And the individual sounds, they're correct, but the rhythm is wrong. It's not computer, it's computer. Computer. So again, the wrong stress on a word can change the whole rhythm of the speech. And often what people describe as someone having an accent is actually a rhythm issue rather than a sound issue. Learners will often place stress on the first syllable of a word because that may be common in their native language. So as I mentioned earlier, many languages use word stress differently. Some languages have very predictable stress. Others place equal emphasis on every single syllable. English is different. English is stress-timed. That means stress syllables occur at a fairly regular interval. Some syllables get extra attention. Others become shorter and weaker. For example, listen to this sentence. I need a cup of coffee. Americans don't say, I need a cup of coffee. Instead, it sounds more like, I need a cup of coffee. The stress syllables drive the rhythm of the sentence. And this rhythm is one of the reasons why American English will sound musical to many learners. Now let's talk briefly about the schwa. The schwa, funny word, isn't it? But it's the most common vowel sound in American English. It's a very relaxed vowel, and it doesn't appear in a lot of other languages. Now, the schwa sounds like just a very relaxed sound, In American English, it appears constantly in unstressed syllables. Consider the word banana. Banana. The first and last vowels become weak. They turn into schwas. Only the middle syllable receives strong stress. Here's another one. About. Notice how the first syllable, it's an A, turns into a schwa, or an It's unstressed. About. Try another word. Support. Support. The vowel in the first syllable turns into a schwa because that syllable doesn't get the stress. Now, if you pronounce every vowel strongly, your speech might sound precise but less natural. As you've probably already guessed, American English loves reducing unstressed syllables. And what I mean by reducing is changing that vowel in the unstressed syllable into a schwa. And word stress, that tells us where those reductions, where those schwas are going to happen. Without reductions, English can sound unusually formal or even robotic. Now let's take a look at a real-life example. Imagine you're introducing yourself in a meeting. You say, "I work in information technology." Now, a lot of American English learners are going to pronounce every syllable equally. So it becomes information technology. Robotic, isn't it? But most Americans are going to say information technology. Now, do you hear how those stressed syllables stand out? They're a little bit louder, a little bit longer, get a little bit more emphasis. The unstressed syllables, they relax. The result sounds smoother and easier to process. They've got that American English rhythm. And your listener, they're going to focus on your message, not your speech. So if you're an American English learner, what can you do to practice word stress? Well, I have some strategies for you. Strategy number 1, learn stress when you learn vocabulary. So don't simply memorize your words. For example, take the word communication. Don't memorize it as communication. Memorize communication. Include the stress from day 1 when you learn a word. Also, when learning new vocabulary, don't just write the word down. Mark the syllable that's stressed. For example, photograph, information, opportunity, communication. Your vocabulary notebook should include pronunciation patterns and not just definitions. So you're going to train your brain to recognize word stress, and you're also training your ears to hear that word stress. And that leads us to tip number 2, and that is shadowing. Now, one of my favorite techniques for learning word stress is shadowing. So choose a short audio or video clip of someone who speaks American English as their native language, and listen carefully. And don't just focus on the individual sounds that person is speaking. Focus on the rhythm of their speech. Focus on the word stress. Try to imitate the melody of the words and of their sentence. Think of it like a musician learning a song. One of the goals is to match the rhythm of that song. So the more that you hear the word patterns, the word stress, the rhythm of the speech, the easier it's going to become. And here's a third strategy for learning and practicing word stress. Exaggerate it when you speak. And seriously, a lot of American English learners are a bit hesitant to use word stress, so they might be a little soft with it. But if you're practicing word stress, make it obvious. Say development, not development. Development. Overdoing it during practice will help you build the habit, and you will begin to sound more natural the more you practice. Now, I've given you some helpful advice about syllable stress in American English, and this is just a basic overview. There is a lot more to learn, so don't give up if you don't learn the basics right away. It does take practice like anything else. But here's the good news for you. Here's the encouraging part. Word stress is one of the fastest pronunciation skills to improve. And why is that? Because you're not trying to learn dozens of new sounds. You're learning speech patterns. You're learning rhythm. And once your ears begin noticing syllable stress, noticing where the stress falls in certain words, you're going to start hearing it everywhere. You're going to hear it in meetings, on television, in this podcast. You're going to hear it in coffee shops, during conversations with coworkers. It's kind of like buying a new car, and then you suddenly notice that the same model of car is everywhere. So once you become aware of stress patterns, you're going to hear them. And better yet, you're going to start using them. So here's a reminder. If you've been focusing heavily on pronouncing sounds like the R sound or L or TH or maybe V or W, don't stop practicing those. No, keep that up. Because those sounds matter, but don't overlook the rhythm of your speech too. Don't overlook syllable and word stress. Because sounding natural isn't just about saying the words correctly. It's about saying them with the rhythm and the melody that listeners are going to expect. And often the difference between sounding understandable and sounding truly natural comes down to one simple question. Are you stressing the right syllable? So here's some homework for you. This week, choose 10 new vocabulary words. Look up the stress pattern. Practice them out loud and listen for them in conversations. And notice which syllable will get the spotlight. You might be surprised by how quickly your speech begins to feel smoother, easier, and more natural. So if there's one thing I hope you remember from today's episode, here it is. People often think sounding natural is about perfect sounds. But natural speech is really about rhythm, and word stress is the foundation of that rhythm. So this week, as I told you earlier, pick 10 new vocabulary words, or maybe words that you use regularly at work. Look up the stress pattern and practice those words out loud, and listen for them in conversations. And you'll begin to notice the music of English. And that will start to build your confidence, because remember, confidence does not come from sounding perfect. It comes from knowing that you're understood. And with that, I'm Katherine Arthur, and thanks for joining me on this episode of Fluent and Fearless. Now, if you found this episode helpful, share it with a friend, a coworker, or a fellow English learner who wants to sound natural and confident when speaking English. Next episode, we're going to discuss another big secret to sounding natural when speaking American English, and that is sentence stress. This is where it all comes together. So if you thought we were done talking about stress, no, we're just getting started. So be sure to join me for the next episode of Fluent and Fearless. Actually, join me for all of them, because my podcasts are always full of free advice. And I also have something else free for you. If you are ready to take your communication skills to the next level, I would love to help you. If you speak English as a second language and you're concerned about your pronunciation of American English, remember, I want you to be fluent and fearless because I know you can do it. Working on your speech and pronunciation doesn't mean that your accent is a problem, not at all. It means you value communication, it means you're investing in yourself, and what really counts when you're doing that is connecting with other people, building relationships, and showing the world who you are as a unique individual. So whether you're looking to succeed in your career or just feel more confident in everyday conversations, or maybe both, accent modification can give you the advantage that you're looking for. So if you're ready to explore pronunciation training and accent modification, I have a free offer for you. You can visit my website at pronouncespeech.com, pronouncespeech.com, and you can book a free consultation with me, Katherine Arthur, no cost, no obligation. These free consultations are a low-key and conversational way to learn how you can benefit from accent modification and pronunciation training. Again, my website, pronouncespeech.com. So again, this is Katherine Arthur, and thanks for joining me on this edition of Fluent and Fearless. Be sure to look me up on LinkedIn, and you can find Pronounced Speech and Accent Specialists on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So until next time, keep speaking, keep showing up, and keep reminding yourself that your voice deserves to be heard. This is Katherine Arthur, and I will talk to you next time on Fluent and Fearless.